Hi, I'm Kirby. Welcome to Rooted and Rising, where I share fresh milk baking, whole food cooking, and simple herbal traditions for everyday life. Today I want to talk about one of my favorite fresh milk flour recipes, and that's going to be buttermilk biscuits. So I've tried several different recipes, tweaked them, changed them in accordance to kind of what I think I like, in my opinion, and this is nailed down as one of my favorite biscuits ever. So it has 6 total ingredients. So we have our grain. We're going to be using soft white wheat berries. We have salt, baking powder, butter, honey, and buttermilk. And so why don't you get comfortable and let's get started. So today what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doubling the recipe. So whatever you hear is going to be a typical doubled amount. If you want to make any changes or go a little smaller batch, feel free to cut all the ingredients in half. Or what I'll do is I will put the single batch ingredients list down in the comments below. So to get started, we have our soft white wheat berries. So what I'm going to do is go with 600 grams to start. Go ahead and weigh that out. I found that weighing our flour provides a more consistent product than doing the volume measurement. You know, scooping flour or spooning flour in a measuring cup. So I'm going to go with 600. There we go. That's 600. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my salt and baking powder together. And the way that I do that is I just put it all into one bowl. I figure it's all going to go in with the dry ingredients anyway, so I'm just going to put it all together. So with salt, we're going to go with 10 grams of salt. Okay, so now what we can do is add our baking powder. So our baking powder, again, you can go by volume, I go by weight. We're going to use 48 grams of baking powder. Let me zero that out. I'm just going to add it right to the bowl that we have the salt. There's 48. And so why don't I get the mill started up and running, and I will get the grain into a flour. Okay, so what I have now is our fresh milled flour. The way I milled it is I have the Nutri-Mill Classic mill, and I just put it on the finest setting as possible. To me, I do that for most of my baking, is I just mill it as fine as possible, and it makes it very soft and tender. So with this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get my salt and baking powder and just add it to my flour, and I just have a little whisk that I'm just going to kind of whisk that in. So the salt is going to bring out all the different flavors of the buttermilk and the honey that we're going to add later, as well as it kind of enhances anything like additional butter that is put in here or inside after it's done baking, or jam or anything like that. The baking powder, what it does is it helps the biscuit to rise and be fluffy. And that's going to be activated or kind of used along with the buttermilk to kind of give it the fluffiness that we're looking for. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set this bowl over to the side, and we are going to start on our wet ingredients. So with our wet ingredients, what we're going to be using is buttermilk along with honey. So this combination is going to help with the biscuits being tender, as well as give it just that unique, that's almost addictive buttermilk biscuit taste that everybody hopefully knows. So with this recipe, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my best to pour 530 grams of buttermilk. So that is 530. That's a rare time that I actually get it to the actual number. With baking and things, as you get going, you'll kind of learn that, you know, if you're off by a little bit, either not enough liquid or a little too much, your products are going to turn out the same. You'll kind of know what it looks like and what it feels like and what to do to change it if you need to. To this, what I'm going to do as well is get 32 grams of honey. So with honey, I'm just going to pour it right out of this jar. This is going to be our sweetener, and I'm going to do my best to try to get around 32 grams without making too much of a mess. Okay, there we go. And so there I'm at 38 grams. So again, don't worry if you're just a little bit light or a little bit heavy in your hand, everything's going to turn out just great. And so after we get all of that together, we can get our whisk from earlier, and we can just kind of mix the honey with the buttermilk together. And again, this is cold buttermilk, because ideally we're going to keep that butter nice and cold so we get that nice tenderness to our biscuits. Okay, so that's all mixed together. And I'm going to set this over to the side. And to our flour, this is the time that we're going to add our butter. So our butter, I'm going to do the equivalent of 2 sticks of butter, but I have this just big block that I got at the store. And the way that I incorporate this is there's a couple different ways. You can either cut it up into small pieces, and you can get a dough cutting tool or a butter cutting tool, something similar to this, to then push down into the flour and mix that in. You can use knives to kind of cut up the bits of butter and incorporate that into the flour. One of the fastest and easiest things that I have learned is if you get your butter and you put it in the freezer for about 20 minutes before you get started, you can pull it out and you can actually use a cheese grater to make little butter shavings in. And then you just lightly mix that in, and it takes a fraction of the time. So that's what I'm gonna do now, is go ahead and get my grater here and get the butter incorporated. As you get closer to the cheese grater, remember that it is sharp and it will cut you. I haven't had that problem with butter. One time I took a hunk out of my thumb trying to grate a carrot. And let me tell you, that did not feel super great. So as I get closer to the bottom or the end of my butter, I go nice and slow. You're not in any rush. Everything's going to be just fine. And we're just gonna make sure that as much of the butter makes it in, and you can see those flakes or those little shavings of the butter that's gonna make our biscuits just that addictive consistency. Now what we can do with our butter is we can get our hands or a hand and we can just cover it and just kind of tease gently that butter into that flour. This is also a good time that if you haven't already, go ahead and get your oven and set it to 450 degrees so that it's all nice and ready to bake whenever you're done mixing in the wet ingredients. So as you can see, I've just kind of gently mixed that butter in. It's still in those shavings. And now what we can do is we can get out our buttermilk and honey mixture. And we can pour that right in with everything. At this point, I'm probably gonna go grab a spoon or fork so that I can mix all of this in without making my hands too messy. All right, so now I've got my fork. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be gently kind of scooping from the outside and coming in and being as gentle as possible. This technique is great with biscuits, and what makes biscuits easy to make because you don't have to worry about kneading the dough for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes to be able to get your final product. With this, you just gently mix it in until you see it come together, and then we'll let it rest for about 10 minutes in the fridge so that all the flour can soak up the buttermilk and the moisture. What you want in the dough is it to be kind of shaggy, and when I say shaggy, you want it to look moist or have moisture in it, but you don't want it to be soupy or runny in texture. You also don't want a whole lot of just free flour that hasn't been able to touch the liquid yet. And so that's what I'm kind of doing, kind of scooping down, mixing it in until you've got it mixed, I would say about 95% of the way. A little bit of flour at the bottom is perfectly fine. Don't worry about it. It'll all turn out just right. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this in the refrigerator for about 10, 15 minutes and let that flour absorb, and we'll be back. So it's been about 15 minutes since I've left it in the fridge to be able to soak up all of that buttermilk. And so now it's time to turn it out onto our tabletop. But what we want to do now is I just have a little bit of extra flour. So sometimes whenever I'm baking, I mill a little extra, or I don't need as much flour in certain recipes, and I just put it in a gallon Ziploc baggie. You can stick it in there, and this is a perfect time to be able to utilize that. So what we do is, what you can do is stick the flour onto your surface that you're gonna be rolling out the biscuits or pressing out the biscuits, just to keep it from sticking too bad onto the countertop. Also, at this time, if you have a little dough scraper, this is a great time to be able to use this. Again, not necessary, but it definitely helps at times. So now I'm going to roll or get the dough onto my mat. And so I can tell this top part's gonna be a little wet. So I'm gonna get a little pinch of that flour that I had in my freezer and just put it right on top. And what our goal is to do right now is to bring all of these ingredients together one final time. And so how we can do that is, again, kind of dust just a little bit, still looks a little wet. Depending on how your grain is, some grain is more dry after you mill it, some grain is more wet. You can kind of adjust at this time according to how it looks. If you wanted just some drop biscuits, this is a great way to be able to do that. You can go ahead and cut out your biscuits now, but I want that little layer that you can actually take apart. So I'm gonna get my little scraper and I'm gonna fold it in half. And again, put some flour on top. You can also use a rolling pin, but to me, that's just one more thing that gets dirty. And so why make any more of a mess when you can just do it a little more simply? If your hands ever get sticky like this, rub them together right onto your dough ball, and it'll just get incorporated in and bake in nicely. Again, get a little bit of flour right there. Now, since we folded this way, we're gonna go the other way this time. Again, just a little bit of flour. Press it out. I think I'm gonna do that one more time. Because remember, the less you mess with biscuits, the more tender and even they'll rise. So now I'm gonna scoop up under and fold in half one more time. Get my last little bit of flour here. And I'm gonna press down. So with this, you can roll it with a rolling pin. You can press it down with your hands, whatever you're comfortable with. You can also decide what shape you want your biscuits. Some people will make a rectangle and they'll get a knife or a dough cutter and they'll cut square biscuits and they'll go right to the tray. That's great. My family likes the round biscuits. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go and push this down to about an inch. In height of the dough. And then I'm gonna get my dough or my biscuit cutter. This is about a 3-inch biscuit cutter. And what you can do is just place it wherever you're at. Want to make a biscuit, and then push right down. And then you can move right next door and do the same thing for all of the dough that you have. Trying to get as many biscuits this first pass as you can. And don't quite have enough room over there. So what we're gonna do now is kind of pull away the excess and get my little scraper and pull out this lovely biscuit and place it onto my baking tray. Cookie sheet, whatever you call it. I have mine lined with a little bit of parchment paper. This isn't an exact science either. You can go a little thicker, a little thinner. Whatever type of biscuits you like are the best type of biscuits. And so now what we're gonna do is I'm going to get a little, again, we don't wanna add too much flour, but just a little bit so that it doesn't stick to our hands. And we're gonna kind of push it together just a couple times until it's just together. Get it to that thickness again that you did the other ones. And then cut more biscuits out. So before I get these in the oven, here's what they look like. All pretty even. Again, they don't have to look perfect. And so what I'll do is put these in the oven at 450 degrees for 15 minutes. Towards the end of the cooking, what I do is I just kind of pull out the pan, kind of look at the bottoms and see how the bottoms are browning. Typically when the bottom becomes nice and golden brown is whenever the center is cooked all the way through. So we'll see you then. Hey everyone, for me today, 15 minutes was the perfect amount of time for these to bake. They are so hot, but one of the things that I'm looking for right now is just kind of that golden, I don't know if you can tell, the kind of dark golden color on the bottom. That usually means that the inside's cooked appropriately. What we'll do is we'll let these sit there just for a little bit, and then I'll show you the inside and how easy they are to break apart. I wanted to show y'all how easy it is to just flake these open. Oh, and that is gonna be great with some butter and jam. So I just want to thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you next time here at Rooted and Rising.